Alright. Alright, so we're going to start with the God's Eye weave. Today I'm going to show you the God's Eye weave. So what I've got here set up is 3 cords on one side, 3 cords on the other side, and then 2 in the middle. And that's your basic ring setup. You can do any color combination you want. And the reason I've got the setup that I have is so you can see how color travels in the God's Eye. And once you understand how color travels in the God's Eye, you should be able to manipulate that and change it to whatever you want. I'm also going to be showing some tricks about how to get tension right. Now, you'll notice typically we connect cords with a lark's head knot. I've not done that here because the rings are so small. So we're just gonna rely on the weave to hold that tension. So the first thing we're gonna do to help with the tension is to cross all these pieces over here, down, up, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And that's just gonna help us hold tension real quick. Alrighty. So we're gonna start with the center. And you're going to do a crossover. You can cross over left over right, right over left. Doesn't matter as long as you're consistent with what you're doing. And if you've got a specific color pattern here, you could really feasibly make some nice changes along the way. But I'm going to go, I think we're going to do under, over, like this. And we're going to do over, under. Like so. And that immediately goes through this whole set here on one side and through the whole other set on the other side. Pull over in, pull this through. Those tight, kinda. Not gonna pull these super tight just yet. The God's Eye weave, interlaced braid, however you want to call it, really relies on having a little bit of looseness. It needs some room to breathe. You can't you have to be careful not to overweave it and over tighten it. So a lot of folks have trouble with the tension in this weave, and what I do is I put my fingers in between, or what would be called the shed, in the shed here, in between sort of my top cords and my bottom cords, and I work from there, just like I do with every other weave. So next we're going to to cross all of these threads over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's all my sides here. And we're going to start creating the sort of braid part of this interlaced braid. And the interlaced part of it. In fact, sort of get both at once. And now we'll sort of pull on these cords a little bit more to sort of tighten that up. Alright. So now I've crossed my sides over, and you see my finger is still in this shed here, the space between the front cords and the back cords. And what we're going to do is we're going to cross everything over. So this side is going to cross over to the right, and this side's going to cross over. So this side's going to cross over the left, and this side's going to cross over to the right. And just like we did earlier, we're going to do an over-under sort of scenario. And again, this is where consistency comes into play. So we did, you can do an over-under however you want, but since I did under-over with the little square at the top, I'm going to go ahead and do under-over again here. So I'm going to take my bottom chords and go under those first chords. And I'm going to take my top chords and go under top chords, cross over, like so. Alright. So again, we're not going to pull too tight. We will sort of even these out, but we're not going to pull too tight. And then we cross over again. And I've done some experimenting with this, and you'll notice, I think the best way to do this is to maintain consistency in the order of chord. So I used to, like, if this was over under, I used to flip this and go under to the outside, over to the in. And I don't like how that ends up looking. I think it creates some unnecessary jogs, and it doesn't cause any tension issues. In fact, it's a little tighter and more neat that way. But, so you could do it if you want, but I think it causes some visual jarring in the pattern. So I prefer to just keep chords in the right order, or in the order that they started out in, rather. So this chord was on the outside, so it's going to get folded under. This one's going to come up, down, up, down, up. We're going to get our chords all straightened out here. And again, we're going to give it a tug, but not too much. Pull that, straighten that out. And we're going to do the same thing with this other side. This would be much easier if I had my toe here to hold things in place, but I don't. So you'll notice this top chord that we're going to have here, this one, is my outside chord. So I'm going to start with going down, up, down, up, down, up, to swap those down and up. And I like to gather the chords here with my fingers so that I have a chance to play with the tension just a little bit. And again, we're still not going to over tighten, but this is a good chance to sort of fix anything that's sort of happening up in this area. So I'm going to give that a tug. Ah, that looks better. That looks a little more even now. And I might pull on this one just a little bit more. And give this top one just a little bit more space. There you go. So, see, what you want is for these to look even. Not... The God's Eye interlaced braid weave is always going to stretch a little bit more than most of your other weaves because of its nature. It is not interwoven with a weft and a warp. It is a braid. And honestly, that's the case with almost all of the braids that you will see. That a braid in general will stretch more than a weave. Okay, so the other trick with this weave, with this pattern, I gotta be careful here. The other trick with the mechanics of this braid is that at every pass, every time you do something, you're going to cross these big sides over each other. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to bring these side pieces back in because we want to recreate that little cross in the center next. And so we're going to pull those in. And I've done something, which means I need to cross these over. And now I'm going to take my outermost chord, so that's this one, if you remember. That's going to come up, down, up, down, up. And then you see this is the outermost chord. So we're going to go down, up, down, up, down. and I'm going to hold on to those again with a single finger here and sort of pinching between my forefinger and my thumb. That's how I like to do it. You might find that there's another way that you prefer to hold the tension. That's what I like. And then I'm gonna tug these in just a little bit, but not very much. Again, it is very possible to over tighten this particular weave. Alright, there we are. So you can see this is actually a little, I just pulled it out. It was a little bit tighter than this other side, and really what you want in this interlaced braid / God's eye weave is for things to be consistent. So when we did this pattern up here, we went under, over, and then over, under. So we're going to do that again. I'm going to replace this half of this finger with my other hand. And we're going to take my 4 pieces, and I went under, over in the bottom, in the top one there, and then over. So we're going to go over, under, like so. Nice little crossover. And we're going to pass these through my shed here. Pass these through this open area. Like so. Give that a tug. And I know I need to interlace these again. But for the moment, I'm going to hold this up with my back finger there, just so I can see how things are going. And we're going to give this one a tug, just to let that sit nice and evenly. And we're going to pull on these. And see, you'll see, this is why I liked to do the crossover. And I think the crossover style, instead of maintaining this outside cord, I think that crossover style works alright if you have more solid colors, if you've got less, if you don't have a lot of colors that are switching back and forth, or you don't have a lot of color pattern happening, if these are solid colors, I think that sort of jog works pretty well, and it helps avoid things like a gap like this here. So what I do instead is I sort of loosen that and let the fluff of the macrame sort of do that work for me. It works kind of the same, with paracord. Paracord does not have as much fluff. It doesn't fill those gaps for you quite as nicely. Alright, so I said we just did something, which means I need to cross over again. So I'm going to maintain that outer edge, and up, down, up, down, up, down. I'm going to swap fingers for my shed here, and then again, outside maintenance there, like so, up, down, up, down, up, down, and finger in between. You'll notice I'm pinching here, and I'm actually holding up the back with the other hand right now, just for demonstration purposes. Normally I would have this on my toe. I don't really have space for my toe, both on this ring and just in this demonstration space, because of the camera setup. Makes it tough. So I'm going to give those a slight tug, just to get that a little more even. This outer one is almost always going to cause you a little bit of pain. And then we're going to give these a tug real quick here. We want those to be fairly snug, but again, not too much. It is way possible to overdo it with these. And actually, I should probably show you what overdoing it looks like, shouldn't I? Alright, well, I'll do that in a second. I'm going to give these one more tug. Another thing you can do to sort of help these gaps is you can sort of give these a tug here, and that'll help sort of snug things up. These side center pieces, your accent chords, I like to think of them as. pulling those in will often help stop gaps like that. Alright, so you might be wondering, well, what does over tugging look like? Well, let's do one more pass here, and then I'll show you what over tensioning looks like on something like this. Alright, so we said we went under over, so we're at a point now that all of my main pattern chords are together. So now I know I need to cross these together, so we're going to go under over, like we did earlier, and then take this top, under this one, for that one. Right. And now I did something, so now I need to interlace again. So we're going to cross these pieces over, like so. Down, up, down, up, down. And this one's my outer chord, so up, down, up, down, up, down. There we are. I'm going to let them sit right there for now on my fingers so that I can adjust tension. It's always a little bit harder to do this sort of under pieces tension, but do that from the bottom chord, like so. There we are. We'll give these a tug. And I'm not going to worry too much about this gap that's showing up right now. I can grab it a little bit, but that's actually going to get fixed when I bring these other side chords back in here, my accent chords. And you might notice that, oh, this red piece is not quite showing the way I want it to. I'll just sort of massage that a little bit. And you can pull this one just a little bit more to make that look a little more even. You can do the same thing with this gold here. There you go. Just like so. Like I said, this weave really needs to breathe. So, alright, let's bring these back in one more time. And then we'll show you what over-tensioning looks like. So we're going to bring these into the middle. And now you'll notice we're back to where we started. But first I did something. So I cross these over. Just like so. And then outside, inside, outside. Like that. And then I did under over. So I'm going to do under over in the inside. And then over under on the outside. And bring those out underneath there. So you'll see there's this space, this space here. We're going to pass those underneath, in between. There you go. And I did something, so now I need to cross over one more time. And now we'll show you what over-tensioning looks like. So if I pull these really tight, if I go ahead and pull these really tight, like so, I'm going to be, pull these really tight, pull these really tight, pull these really tight, pull those really tight. That's what that ends up looking like. You end up with, if you pull everything as tight as you can, you're going to end up with these side chords cinching in this middle really tightly. First of all, these accent chords, instead of being at sort of the width of the rest of the braid. And you're going to end up with a lot of unevenness, because you're going to pull these really tight, and now there's gaps, so you think, oh, well, I gotta pull that tighter, and like, that's not gonna solve the problem, because you've pulled this so tight that you can't do that, right? So you're gonna pull this as tight as you can, and now look at this. Look at all these gaps we've got here. That's not gonna get fixed very easily. I can go ahead and do my under-over crossover next here, and we can experiment with this. Let's experiment with this for a second. See what this does. Like so. Pull these together. And I really want to try to fix those gaps. And so, okay, so this is starting to fix those gaps a little bit. But I'm going to pull this tighter. Because that's what I said I wanted to do. I really wanted to pull these nice and tight. Really, really tight. I want to tighten as much as I can. Right, okay, so I've tightened as much as I reasonably can. And I'm going to go ahead and pop these through, because that's what's next. Just so you can see it here. And then we'll take a pause, and we'll explore what this looks like. All right. So, I am tightening this as much as I reasonably can. As much as my fingers will let me, I am tightening this. There we go. Let's explore what's happened here. So, in the top piece here, this top section, I could probably pull these accent colors in just a little bit more. I generally like to have them be at sort of the width of the rest of the braid. I think that looks nice. Although having a little bump out is kind of nice too. It's kind of a feature of the piece, right? Now, you'll notice up in this top piece here, sure, there's a little bit of a gap there. I can come back and fix that. I can pull this piece a little bit tighter, and maybe I do want to cross these two cords over. Maybe that'll help. But the biggest thing you're going to see here is that I can see all of the colors in my middle. When I over tighten, I can no longer see all of my colors evenly in the center here. And you'll notice too that the